Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to the channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Ko-Fi, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Refracted Curvature, Neil, Brian's Logic, the Adam Meakin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
How are you? About time people here early.
Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. You might be in the middle of the night, for all I know. It's nice to have you all. Welcome to all of the live stream people. Please share the show, as I did already in the call to action. Should we do a bit of housekeeping?
Yeah, go for it.
What were we talking about in the pre-show? I should have paid more attention. Space. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without a necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
Are you asking, Nathan, is there any evidence that gas will not diffuse into an area of basically zero resistance?
Not exactly, because it's almost like I'm justifying the positive assertion of entropy when it's a well-documented law of nature. So no, I'm not really asking it in that manner. There's a positive claim that there is a sky vacuum without containment. So the phraseology is such that we're asking for evidence of the positive assertion that the sky is a vacuum with gas pressure that we breathe without containment. That's their claim that they need to back. When they can't, space is fake. Diffusion is diffusion. It happens. You know, it's a law of nature.
Yeah, but so I'll ask again. Are you asking, is there any evidence that gases would not diffuse into an area of zero resistance?
You can read it in that way. I'm not saying that isn't the interpretation, a correct interpretation of the question if you need to interpret it. But the reason it's been phrased that way is because of the positive claim they make.
Well, no. Diffusion, sorry, 1 second here. Diffusion for any fluid, especially with gases, is a lessening of the concentration. That's what it is. So we have a concentration of gas, right? A concentration of gas. And we're supposed to be on a globe, and it's surrounding the globe. And surrounding this big concentration of gas, we have this massive, massive vacuum that's also uncontained. So are you asking, is there any evidence that this gas will not diffuse into this other massive area of zero resistance? Because the only thing that would slow down diffusion is resistance.
Now you've said it the exact same way a third time. I'm going to go with yes.
No, there's no evidence of that.
It is a perfectly legitimate rephrasing of the question, because it is an implication of their primary claim that the sky is a vacuum without containment. So yes. So I'm not just being facetious.
Yeah, well, just for the audience, when they put what's that really, really dense gas, that man-made gas? Sulfur hexafluoride. When they put that in a fish tank, and they take the top off the fish tank, right, and you can still float a little tinfoil boat on it, right? And they go, see, right, gas pressure without a container or whatever nonsense. It's like, what they're not stating is because of the density of the sulfur hexafluoride, right, it's going to diffuse slower. That's number one reason. But the real reason it's diffusing slower is not just because of its density, it's also because of the density of the air, right, and the air pressure. So you have the pressure and concentration, let's just say, of sulfur hexafluoride in the fish tank, then you have the pressure and concentration of air surrounding it in the room. So people think, look, it's staying as it is. No, after a while, that little tinfoil boat will go down, 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 and it'll reach the bottom, and all that sulfur hexafluoride will have diffused into the surrounding volume, right? Now, the reason it's slow, the real reason it's slow, is not just its own concentration or density, it's the density and concentration of the air. But if you remove that air, then there's no reason for it to be slow at all. It will instantaneously just diffuse into that surrounding volume of no resistance.
Yeah, exactly. So what you're suggesting is in the laws, you've got oversimplifications when you describe these things, right? So in terms of gas dispersion, it's described with V and V being volume. And then the oversimplification will just describe the entropic instantaneous dispersion of the gas throughout the volume. And what Brian's saying is, when you look at the sulfur hexafluoride, they take it at a high pressure in a container and pump it into a different container. Okay, so then you've got already in existent gas in the containment that we must have to have pressurized gas with a new gas displacing it. So then you've got not just volume, you've got a huge amount of gas that's already in the space that it's got to diffuse through. So it has to pick its way through the gaps in the existing gas pressure. Now, that can slow down the diffusion process, whereas in a simplistic term, you could just say, well, it would just, why isn't it just instantly diffusing into the volume? It's like, well, because there's something in its way. But it will diffuse. There's gaps between the air. It has to diffuse.
Yeah,
it's a law of nature.
Sorry. It's always with existing gas pressure. I don't get why people are not getting that.
It's a red herring.
Because the gas pressure that's surrounding that's also diffusing into the sulfur hexafluoride, you see. So both are diffusing with each other. It's not as if the sulfur hexafluoride just diffuses into the air, then you have a vacuum in your fish tank. That's not the case. You know, it all diffuses together. The more dense a gas is, the slower its diffusion rate is. The less dense it is, the faster its diffusion rate is. So they start calculating the density of gases, because it's only a calculation with gases. But the thing about it is that if there is nothing there to impede it, regardless of the gas, no matter how dense it is or not dense, as how they describe it, it doesn't matter. If there's nothing there to impede it, it's going to instantly diffuse. You see what I mean?
This is the point, right?
Sorry,
No, I just wanted to add to that. Like Nathan said, the point, oversimplistically. Well, that's an ideal gas behaviour, and whilst it could be poo-pooed by being described as, oh, that's a little oversimplistic, not with regards to the primary function, of gas behaviour. That oversimplification is perfect for you to understand it. Now, you want to go down the line and look at how individual gas molecules behave on their own. There's slight differences, but those differences are still commensurate with the simplification, which is it will travel to any available space based on its last collision. That oversimplification is not an oversimplification. It's the most basic statement of gas behaviour.
Yeah, if you've got an issue because you've got a sky vacuum that defies that basic principle, gas filling space, it continuing in whatever vector it has based on its last collision, if you introduce a delta and say, well, what if I introduce a collision with another gas? I can suggest that where we are existing in our gas pressure, it only needs collisions with other particles. Therefore, I can describe how gas go down, go boom, boom, to keep us at pressure without containment. Now, it's a baseless assertion. It has no evidence to back it. But when they oppose us based on the laws, they'll challenge us based on things like ideal gases. So Adam's suggesting that when I say, yes, it's an oversimplification, intentionally simplified so you can understand it at the base level. But they will say, well, show me an ideal gas. Well, there isn't an ideal gas. It's an ideal gas that's used in the description to describe how entropic dispersion in this instance will occur. So you can understand it at the base level, so that when you've got more complex systems to disperse through, you can understand how, in a base principle, the gas will disperse through the volume available to it if it's not impeded by a different gas, in which case there'll be a vector change and an elastic collision. But that's an a delta of the oversimplified original premise that stands true always. It's a law of nature. But they need to defy it. The other delta of it that they could appeal to is the gradiated pressure that we experience as dispersion occurs, with all gases being created at the highest concentration at ground level, ergo less of them at a higher altitude, as they cycle and must be contained to form this gradient. But if they just ask about the gradient, ignoring the original question about how we can have all this gas pressure, alluding to Neil's original point, is because they need to red herring away from the original question. If they can appeal to a delta of the original question, they no longer have to address how we have the original gas pressure. It just exists. And I'll describe examples that take place within the existing gas pressure being questioned because it's not under containment with a sky vacuum above our heads. Hope that answers the question. Neil.
Hold on.
Just want to do a quick shout out before we move on. Shout out to just a quick shout out to Moop for joining as a hyena. He did it before the show started, so I won't bring up the chat. Go ahead.
Well, it may be a red herring to appeal to atmospheric pressure and an oxymoron, right? But they're appealing to these things to try to save their global religion with heliocentric space. It's not stating those things is not helpful for you if you live on a globe because you have to invoke a flat plane to reference them.
Yeah, that is true. But when we're talking about the behavior of gases and their claims, though, John, when they want to start talking about the gas pressure gradient, not only is it a delta X, but they're actually appealing to diffusion within a paradigm that violates diffusion. Because I understand what you're talking
yes,
about.
just don't start out with no, John. Otherwise, this will get. Hold on. Let's immediately get control of YouTube before this gets out of hand real quick. Yeah, if you're better off starting with yes and then saying it also needs a flat plane to describe the altitudes. But its principle is correct because you started with no, John, and it does defy a principle of gas dispersion into the volume they have.
Yeah, but this isn't gas dispersion debate. The debate is not about the behavior of gases, is it?
Oh, he's got me there. I can't defend this, Brian. I'm out. You take the lead, man. Yeah, I totally agree, John. It should always be segued back onto the nature of the plane that we're measuring in terms of the altitudes of the gas when dispersing throughout the volume that must be contained to have it.
But it's debunking the globe. Come on. Certain times you debunk it, and then you follow it up with what John did.
Let it go.
You're both 100% correct.
The ball died in 2020. Let it go.
No. When you're talking about gas behavior, this is there's no point trying to say this is not a cornerstone argument of this whole debate.
I'm not going to say that.
I understand John's point. I'm not denying it.
Just let it get him out. Hold on, John. Go on, Brian.
I couldn't deny it, but it's not my point. I'm not talking about the nature of the surface. I'm talking about the nature of gas behavior and how they're trying to appeal to diffusion while also promoting a paradigm that is violating diffusion. So I'm purely dealing with the behavior of gases. What the surface of the Earth is at that point doesn't matter within what I'm talking about.
Ahead,
I'm
John.
only appealing to
We got that. Go ahead, John.
Right. I understand your point. I'm not saying that your point about the behavior of gas is wrong. What I'm saying, if you are in a debate with someone and the debate is about X, and you're talking about a principle that applies to X, but they concede to your point about X so they can talk about your principle, you're whistling past the graveyard. At that moment, they have conceded the debate.
Right, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, but it's kind of a side point to what, because no matter what, if I'm going to start talking about gas behavior, I'm talking about purely that and not the nature of the surface.
Okay, you're both correct, right? Just interject, because otherwise we'll just go around in the same circle. Gotcha. And there is a methodology to Brian taking the tact that I'm not going to immediately connect this to a nature of flat plane measurement, which is absolutely legit. John's 100% correct. I more lean towards John's argument, obviously, in 2024, where I'm banging that drum and that drum alone in other servers. However, to keep it hyper-specific for people to understand gas dispersion, Brian's saying, no, well, I'm not making that point. So it kind of undermines my point if you take it there when I want to get the dispersion, the entropic effects, the lack of containment hammered home in this discussion. And I also, although Brian didn't say it, want to add this in, which is fundamentally a lot of the time it does undermine some of those arguments when John or I or anybody else introduces you're going to need a flat earth for that, and pointing it out with altitude with respect to a horizontal plane in this instance for the gradient. The gradient is described with altitude. You're going to need a flat earth for it. It's respect to sea level. John's right. But that process, to be able to undermine, and it does undermine Brian's point, not because it invalidates it, but because it one-ups it. It's saying I can do one better than just proving we can't have gas pressure without a container. To describe the gradient when they go to delta X, we'll need a flat earth to describe it, right? That's the full process of this discussion. But Brian's objection is to say, if I'm trying to keep somebody who doesn't necessarily know that or can comprehend more than 5 things at once, I need to get them to just understand how gas dispersion works. Therefore, you bringing this up undermines my position. Even though he's not saying that, I'm doing it on his behalf because I've said it before. I've also added, I know this is lengthy, that when you do this, when you, in my words, undermine someone else's process by taking it to the flat earth that is required, yeah, you do have to have a very sharp understanding of the process that Brian's describing, in this case, entropic dispersion, to link it back to the flat plane reference that's used in the description of altitudes with gradients. So it has to have a nod to the initial information in order to undermine it. You know what I mean? It's like throwing out all of the understandings of a Coriolis argument that could go on for 5 hours with me and my exemplary understanding of how to debate that. Not that I'm grateful of it. I hate the subject. But it can all be undermined by using a horizontal plane of reference to describe the axis, right? And for me, I'm like, wow, what a great shortcut for, you know, me to not have to argue about Coriolis for hours on end. For you just want to get the information out, which is still just as legit as it was when it was first presented to us by Quantum Eraser, right, Brian? You just want that to be the focus for just for the next 2 minutes, if it's that long that it takes you, right?
Well,
it's more than that, though, isn't it?
Adam.
It's more than that. You want. John said a good point, which was you've won the debate there. Well, yeah, in your mind you have, but you've got to demonstrate it. So until you've got the opponent to concede, you can't have gas pressure without a container. Don't move on. You don't need to move on. You can come to that point anyway. It's a banker, right? And if you get him to concede, you could also then go, oh, by the way, the way in which you're going to
Adam
describe
gets the end, and then John. Adam, go ahead. Unless Brian wants to look after.
Win the debate in everybody's mind, not just yours. If you're live, yeah, that's what I would say. And not move on. Once you've got that concession, like John alluded to, not just in your own mind where you know you've won, but you've got him to admit it. Then go, oh, by the way, you know those altitudes you're talking about? Going to need a flat earth for that. That's when I'd do it.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah.
No, you're
Brian, then John.
Debate
Hold on, John. Just one sec.
Hold on.
It was Brian responding to my long waffle, though. So Brian, then John. Go ahead, Brian.
I'll be quick. I'm coming from a point of view of standing there, like, because I'm always putting myself in this scenario, standing there with someone like Sabine, Hossenfelder, someone with education, right, even if they're pseudoscientists, in front of maybe their peers and whoever else. And then I'm asking her to define the diffusion of gases. And that's where I start with. So going to, you're going to need a flat earth for that when she'll never get to the point of being able to bring up the gradient. That won't happen because I'll completely surpass that by talking purely about diffusion and bringing up the fact that she's claiming a vacuum. Do you know what I mean? I'll completely destroy that.
Okay, thank you.
This argument's happening in a vacuum then,
John,
is what you're saying.
Hold on, I'm rumpusing you. I'm trying to introduce you back into the conversation. I'm talking through you to do it. Go ahead, John.
Anyway, you're introducing this argument in a vacuum, but it's undermining your argument in this vacuum. Like if you just forget everything and just this moment exists, I don't see that. I'm sorry. I don't see that. It's not just about Sabine Hossenfelder's understanding. When you debate someone, it's about the people listening to you debate someone. And at the moment you're in a debate, you don't have to get them to concede. The audience needs to recognize they've lost the point.
That's Adam's point.
Yes.
Yeah, I disagree with Adam, but let's just hear Brian's response, and then I'll disagree with Adam after.
Yeah, that's my point. John and Adam is on the same line. I feel that what I'll do in that situation is because I'm asking her to define the diffusion of gases straight away, because she has an education and those listening to her have an education, they will suddenly realise we are on dangerous ground here, because she will have to define it correctly. And that's when I would bring her to our claimed sky vacuum. That's when I would bring her right there. I watch within her paradigm that violates the very thing she's after just describing.
Okay.
And at that point, you know what I mean? That's where I'll bring her. Yeah, and the audience will obviously, I'm just saying it can't not be obvious that I have a point to the audience, regardless of if they're educated or not.
Right. I'm not saying that your points aren't valid. I don't know why it's being brought up as I'm undermining you.
I've said that.
I am pointing out, it's wrong. The entire debate is about the nature of the ground you're standing on. Is it level curving? Are we on a ball? Or is it flat? It's not about...
hold on, Brian. I do want to get a word in here as well. Okay, right. This is going to be hard for me because in principle, I 100% agree with John. However, just for the nature of this discussion, no, I say undermine. I want to disagree with Adam before I get to that bit. No, Adam says, no, wait, get your point across like Brian's suggesting, so that the focus is on the sky vacuum and how it doesn't work, and undermine their principles, get them to understand entropy, or as an educated person with Sabine, get her to confess her understanding for her audience of that which undermines space, and then move on to how you'll need a flat earth for the reference plane. Now, I disagree with that because, like when we saw Witsit, you get 5 words in and then you're in the first commercial break. So, for me, I've got to agree with John. It's got to be taken to a flat earth. The reason I say it undermines the focus of the point, which is Brian's point, and I do agree with that. You have to kind of be careful when you take it somewhere. I think ultimately, though, that is the better path because of the way that John's put it. I'm smiling because everyone's going to claim bloody favouritism just because I'm agreeing with him. But I do.
I'm just going to disagree with you.
Well, go ahead.
Win your debate, right? If you've only got one question, right? It's your last day on the fit, and you've got to get you've got one answer to give, then go that way. You haven't. You've got plenty of time. Demonstrate your point, and then move on. See, with my baller head on, you listen to that response, you go, well, that's non sequitur. Because fundamentally, I know the debate is flat Earth, but this is a specific part of it. And elevation angles aren't necessary to make the point. In fact, they, like I said, I think they are almost...
Hold on. Hold on, both you stop. I think Adam's getting to our claim versus their response in Delta X, John. Just let him get there, though. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, that's the point. You've got to at least be cognizant with what they're saying, and you can be, and destroy them. Then pull it back to a flat Earth. But if the initial question is that, right, all the neutral or the baller's going to hear is you've not answered the question. You've just gone straight to elevation angles, which is the fun bit at the end.
No,
I totally disagree.
No, I didn't go to elevation angle. I didn't go to elevation angles. I didn't say angle at all in that. I pointed out that elevation is with respect to a flat plane. That is what elevation is. It's just what it is.
But at this point, she's not introduced a gradient, has she? So all we've got is the question, can you have gas pressure without containment? That's what you've got to
And
answer.
I pointed to that and said, in a vacuum, right, with nothing else being discussed, if they make that claim, yes, you can state that. But that inherently is not. I mean, we're on flat Earth debate, not gas pressure debate.
You're
No,
both
but that's a
right.
small
Let's not lose our tempers with each other.
Detail
Hold on.
needs
Just one
listing.
second, Adam. Like when we were discussing Witsit, and we did it very cordially in that regard, right? Everybody had a difference in opinion in terms of Witsit's approach, right? Now, fundamentally, we all thought his approach was bad, but nevertheless, everybody had a different idea about what the better way would have been to do it. Okay? Yeah, opinions and assholes, as we all know. However, in this particular instance, everybody's got merit in terms of their viewpoint, with the focus being on gas pressure in rebuttal to the sky vacuum, and the focus on what I think should be close to everybody's heart at 10 years in, that we're going to need a flat plane for it, no matter what we're describing, in this case, altitudes of gas pressures. So, you know, there's no wrong here. We could easily fall out about who's more right, but let's not. Let's just move on to Sabine, unless there's anything particularly pertinent that hasn't already been discussed.
All I say, Nathan, all I say to you is, and to John, and this would be my critique. I can't speak for Adam, but I would say Adam would be similar to me. Is that when if you say, when you're talking about the diffusion of gases, and if she does bring up gradient, then I could say, well, yeah, I could go into what creates the gradient, but I would throw in, you're going to need a flat plane to describe any gradient, Sabine. You understand that?
Yeah.
I would throw that in there, but that can't be the focus of my point. I have to be going, that's just something I can throw in there. I understand this is going to...
I get it. We're just going over it again.
Just 1 second. No, 1 second. Just 1 second. The problem is, if I start doing that too much, what I find when I'm hearing you do it, John too, but you more because you're speaking more on the show, it becomes chanty. And people start tuning out the chanting. That's what happens. It doesn't matter if it's correct, it becomes chanting.
No,
and I don't want that.
Let's not have this. Let's not just no to each other, Brian and Neil.
I'm just being honest with you, Nathan.
No, I appreciate it.
Just being honest with you.
No, I get it. I would rather you said.
All right, John.
Okay, we get it. Yes, I'd rather it was said that way. You know, maybe you'll get a load of allegiance in comments, which is usually how these things go when I pay more attention to them. That is to say, after about the half-dozenth person that comes along and says, actually, yeah, when you do take every subject immediately to proving flat Earth, that gets a bit... Now, if I was to read that, I'd be a bit horrified. Because I'd be like, what do you want? Oh, I'm sorry I take everything to proving it's flat immediately. Oh, my bad. But one state of mind and purpose for one person in this discussion that is hyper-focused on getting it to flat Earth as quickly as possible, and I'll take that on me rather than John, just to round this out quicker, right, is not wrong, but it's not also... is, in my opinion, slightly wrong to take your point about gas pressure straight to a flat Earth while you're making it with your focus being on that, the entropic dispersion. That's where, I mean, it would undermine you. So I can understand why this can get contentious and the audience might not see it. They're like, why are they arguing? Everyone's a winner, right? Yeah, everyone is. But it does, to the person that's making the point, if I'm trying to really drill home how Coriolis works, and somebody pipes up in the middle of it and it's like, this is nonsensical. Why are you explaining how globe-based, spherical-based Coriolis works with flight paths when the axis described with respect to a horizontal plane proves we're on a flat plane just to have this discussion? You're like, yeah, but I want people to understand how Coriolis doesn't work. You can understand that being, I would empathically understand that would be frustrating and seen to be undermining the focus of the point, not the point in principle.
No, it was. Like what John said, it wasn't intentionally, it wasn't an intent to undermine me, but what he said did undermine what I was talking about. It's just, it just by influences, or by...
No, I'm sorry. See, in a vacuum, your point is valid, right? If they come out with this statement about an astronaut taking a picture of Earth, right? Your point is valid. I'm addressing their rebuttal, which is an attempt to undermine your point. I am undermining their point, not yours. I don't know why you all are saying that I'm chanting or I'm undermining you.
No, that's to me. That's to me. Although it was
Can
directed
I
at you
just
as
have
well.
another word, please, on this? Because that what John's just said there is the point. So if we then go and we've got somebody like Sabine, and she goes and invokes a gas pressure gradient, you're going to ask her about how this containment can occur. You're going to stay on target. You're going to keep her on to the point where she has to make the statement that gas go down, go boom, boom. And then you're going to ask Sabine to demonstrate where gravity has been shown to have an effect on gas behavior. Keep her in her field and embarrass her.
That's what I would do, yeah.
Yeah. Well, hold on a sec. Look,
No, I would take it the other way, yeah.
right. Yeah. What are we talking about? Like, we're just going to let her continue to control the conversation at the point we know that she's wrong. We can demonstrate she's wrong, and we pointed to how she is wrong.
Yeah, there's something that's been missed here, though, John.
Hold on, he was nearly there. Hold on, Brian. Hold on. I'll just round out what John was just saying. Brian, hold on. He was just saying, what? So once you know she's wrong and all the things John said, I won't recap, then what? You allow her to explain within La La Land gravity?
No, you show to the audience that she cannot explain and has to, first of all, make the claim that gravity is doing all this magic stuff and then can't support it. Like, this is what I said about it. You know in your mind at this point you've won, right? Brilliant. So stay on target. You know now you can't lose. Drill it home every single point and make her concede. Don't go off the topic. She's brought it up. Make her change the topic. Or get her to concede, then you change the topic. But you're on a winner.
A winner with their loss.
Yeah.
Yes, demonstrating to your audience that the Sabine Hossenfelder don't know shit about physics and she's just been humiliated with regards to gravity and thermodynamics by a flat earther. Or the audience here go, you'll need a flat earth for that.
Or prove a flat earth with it, with her example.
No, because she's just going to... That's the point. You can bring that point up later, but she's brought that point up. Deal with that one point first. You're perfectly capable of doing so. Why go to another point?
Okay. Let's just hear John. Go ahead, John.
What?
I'll go after you.
Wait, hold on. You're saying, right, and deal with the red herring. Don't deal with what she said.
No, it's not a red herring that they claim gravity affects gas behavior.
Hold on, Adam. Let's just get to the end of each sentence. We're nearly there. I know this has become contentious. This might be why people don't like
the term
this.
red herring, that needs addressing, Nathan. That's a misnomer. No, it's not a red herring I'm asking you to address. It's their statements and asking them to prove their fundamental claims and demonstrating to them that their fundamental claims are underpinned by this magic thing called gravity, that when you ask them to show how it affects gas behavior, they can't and have to admit defeat. I'm at a loss as to why you wouldn't keep your foot on their neck.
John.
You're confused about why I wouldn't chase down Delta X instead of just pointing out how it's a red.
I'll go after you, John.
How are you going to point out it's a red herring? You're going to have to explain it all first to the audience. Say it's not about the win in your head. It's about demonstrating it to everybody. Now, how much of the audience is going to go, oh, well, you're confused about Delta X. I'm not even going to deal with it. That looks like you're scared to the person. You're not prepared to deal with that.
Yeah,
unless you explain it. You've lost the audience.
John, then let's just let John and Adam round out. Then Brian's waiting in the wings. Go ahead.
If I don't address the red herring, I look like I'm scared. Because... Like,
it's not a red herring. So stop calling it a red herring. That's a straw man.
You don't
address my point instead of summarising it as a red herring so you can hand wave dismiss it. That's not correct.
Because you've done that twice, Adam. He's saying the red herring. The red herring is to go to Delta X. That is a red herring.
Yeah,
no, it's not. It's not a red herring.
This for that. Yeah,
I don't know what else.
You just keep chanting. Adam's now. I don't want to use it like contextually. Yeah, Brian just did, but yeah, that's the third time you've disagreed. But in the discussion flow, when you ask them how you can have gas pressure without a container, and they say, how can we have a gas pressure gradient on a flat Earth? That's a red herring.
No, not for me. It's not. It's an example for me to take it to the woodshed.
Well, Okay.
Yeah. The problem here, Nathan, and this is what I was trying to get in. The problem here is that if you go back and listen to this conversation on this live show, not once did I bring up gradient. You brought up gradient.
We know, and John's disclaimed that.
Hang on, but I was purely dealing with gas pressure and diffusion.
Okay, we're going around in circles. Okay, stop. Yeah, John has said it 3 times. I'll summarise it again because he said it in a vacuum without the appeal to Delta X coming our way. John has already said 3 times. You're absolutely correct. There is no necessity to go to the sea level reference for Delta X in red herring rebuttal. And you're right. And he said that and he's agreed. So, yeah.
Yeah,
in a vacuum.
I'm talking about you brought up the gradient. You brought the word gradient in.
Yeah.
When I speak, what I was speaking about, they can't get the gradient because they have to deal with the gas pressure in the first place. I'm talking about gas pressure and diffusion. Now, they can't have a gradient. They can't get the gradient at that point because gradient would require gas pressure. They would require gas pressure to form within a vacuum and for that gas to not diffuse into the area of no resistance.
Sure.
That's what I'm talking about.
Sure, it's the best bit of the argument, Brian. Never going to get a disagreement out of me. It's the best bit of the argument.
The gradient part doesn't come into it, Nathan.
I agree.
My point is that the only reason, hang on, please leave me finish. The gradient you brought into it in this conversation, not me. You brought it in, and that's what we ended up going around in circles about. The gradient can't be brought into it with the direction I took. That was the point.
Fair enough, and I completely agree. Alrighty then. I don't think there's anything more pertinent. We've exhausted that. So, today we're going to be covering Sabine Hossenfelder. So, I've already put it once in the chat, so hopefully one of the mods has picked up on that fact as it flashed up on screen for the audience. But please let Sabine know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. As always, the idea being that we're Sabine to make a response video to what we covered here today. She'll put a link to our video and help us in the YouTube algorithm where we do not receive any love whatsoever from YouTube. So hopefully she'll share the love like we're sharing it for her now by sending our audience to her to comment and maybe even subscribe, watch her video, all that good stuff. So yeah, there's a comment whizzing on by. So please do that right now. Like literally, if you are amongst the live members of the audience right this second, then please do it. I will do a little call to action. There's just under 100 people watching. So it'd be nice to, as I say, share the algorithmic love with Sabine while I waffle through my call to action 2 or 3 times in a repetitive manner, giving the people who do actually click on the link and do let Sabine know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me time to actually go and do what I've suggested with my call to action, which is leave her a little comment and then toddle on back to see that we're just starting doing it. And we've only had a little tiny preamble about what we're going to be covering today. Anyway, what we are covering today, just to strap onto the end of this little call to action, is why flat earthers scare me. Okay, fair enough, Sabine. We'll find that out in the video, I have no doubt. And as I say, it's Sabine Hossenfelder, or Hossenfelder channel. So if you are just listening as opposed to watching, you can reference that however you want to. But yeah, Brian's the one who actually shared this video with us, so I'll give him the chance to actually tell us why. And then hopefully everyone who's gone and left her a comment will have come back. I know you're all keen because I can hear you waffling over me. I'm keeping this lengthy so people come back to the live audience to hear what you're about to say. But go ahead, whoever it is. I'm hoping Brian will give us a preamble. Oh, lots of rustling on the mic. I mean, that's just
Neil off and mute. Neil off mute.
It's not me, it's my phone's going crazy.
On me, it's my phone.
Yeah, it's jumping on and off mute like crazy. I don't know why.
I suggest we have this little segue ruined by you telling us all about this technology fumble of yours. Go ahead, Brian.
See, you just did it again. Play a video.
Everyone loves Neil. This is why. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the video is basically, the reason I shared it is because it's only 8 minutes long, so it's perfect length to review on a live show. But also, it just shows how panicky the top echelon of pseudoscience are becoming when it comes to this topic. This lady has made 2 other videos in the past, and the second video she made concerning flat Earth, And the second video she made was in support of us. But this video completely contradicts those other videos because it's purely an attack on us, simply because she's now in a panic concerning us. I think she thought we were just going to go away, or it was a fad or something. And now it's like she's doing her best to not accept that, hang on, this situation is getting worse for her, not us. And that's what this is about. And that's why I think it's very telling. That's why I shared it.
Okay, that's slightly different to what you said in the pre-show, but that's good in a way because it links back to Dom Jolly and Fight the Flat Earth, where they're like, oh, these people are so amusing. Oh, they just keep me so entertained. I make endless hours of content off the back of these crazy numpties. Simultaneously, though, Flat Earth is the gateway drug to a lot more serious stuff. We need to take this very seriously. We need to take this seriously now. We need to do something about it. You're like, going a bit of cognitive dissonance about what flat earthers are now, are you? A minute ago, we were just some blip on the radar that's going to be gone within a year. 10 years later, we're a gateway drug to some very serious stuff, said the people who are very worried about us for some reason, all of a sudden. I thought we were a joke, not to be taken seriously. Now we're getting videos, why flat earthers win debates, why flat earthers scare me, how flat earthers are the gateway drug to blah, 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 blah. You're like, oh, God, you people. We're just people. We just know our Earth's measured. It's not that big a deal, you know? Anyway. Right, any more on Sabine before we actually get into the video? No? Okay, let's get on with it.
Worried about flat earthers. I made a video about this a couple of years ago, and I thought that it was a temporary curiosity, like some religious sects have a moment in the sun and then disappear. But the flat earther community seems to be growing. On the face of it, flat earth beliefs are completely bizarre. Most flat earthers think that the earth is a disk with a north pole in the middle and the
stereotype fallacy. Let's see if I can change my subtitles to English. Why is she, why is it giving me French subtitles? Stupid thing. Oh, let's just turn them off. Okay. No, most flat earthers think what? We have a North Pole centric system that's derived from measurements. That's how the maps are all laid out. It's also simultaneously how the globe model was developed. Latitude lines. That's areas of equal elevation with respect to Polaris and its GP. Stretch around a ball. So it's no longer functional. So you have to have transpositions of the ball you're not getting angles from to the centre of hell if you're going to claim you're living in a globe, which you're not. You're not living in a globe either, but you still need flat planes to get angles to give you latitudes on your ball when you measure them as circles of equal elevation on a flat plane. But what's this, you say? What is a North Pole-centric azimuthal equidistant projection floating in a sky vacuum with a sun that seems to be with it in orbital motion around? I'm pretty sure this is a bastardization of your religion, Sabine. I mean, I don't believe this. Anybody else here believe this crap? Pizza pie in a sky vacuum? Most, she said, most. So surely with a poll here, quick straw poll, a lot of flat earthers on the panel, surely most of us will agree with what's on screen now, right?
Well, that was my point. Are us at Flat Earth Debate like most flat earthers?
No, but I can say that in this panel right now, we are majority of flat earthers, so I can ask us a quick straw poll and see if what she says as a straw man stereotype fallacy actually stacks up just based on this single group of mostly flat earthers. So G+ and Discord, this is where you just need to say yeah or nay, just quickly, just to keep the show flowing. Does anybody in the panel comport to the idea that we have a pizza pie floating in a sky vacuum in orbital motion as depicted by Sabine?
No, absolutely not.
No, we don't. But this is our problem at the moment, isn't it? That is exactly what's being pimped. I heard Carl Froch the other day butting on someone going, no, there's an ice wall. This is the reality that most flat earthers actually do ascribe to that. That's what we're fighting against, our own, trying to educate them, these things. So as much as it is a stereotype, statistically, it's probably true.
I just feel like
well, not the part where she has a pizza disc in space. That part is not true.
Well, no, but the ice wall. You took a straw poll of anyone that said the flat Earth. I'm sorry, but we stand outside of this feast of nonsense stuff.
I can't disagree, can I? I mean, he completely undermines my point, but you're absolutely correct, Adam.
The South Pole is a wall on the outside that...
Now it becomes your claim. As far as we are concerned, I'm not going to keep peppering this disclaimer. Right, I can only talk from my own point, and I can only ask my panel of predominantly flat earthers what they think, and I have. But, you know, no, this becomes your claim now. Because by stereotype, it doesn't fly. It's still a fallacy. It doesn't matter if Adam's going to claim statistically. I've said, I won't make all these disclaimers, I won't. No. So you're going to have to back up your claim that there's an ice wall around the edge of a flat pizza pie floating in a sky vacuum in orbital motion as depicted. It's your claim, it's not mine.
keeps the water from escaping.
Of a projection of a projection is what that is. It is not where we live. It is not a model. It is a map of a projection of a projection. That is such nonsense. I don't see why anybody would even try to defend it.
Well, what she's doing is, by like they all do, is they give this ridiculous situation. Like the ice wall thing, that works for people when you're on a stationary plane with a sun and moon and stars that are not what they say they are in heliocentrism. But when you place this disk with an ice wall around it into a heliocentric sky vacuum, that changes everything. It makes it look really ridiculous. Whereas even though at least a nonsense dome and ice wall, like just offhand for someone, that is not ridiculous. They may not agree with it, but it's not totally ridiculous. Whereas if you're talking about a situation where there's an ice wall around a disk in a heliocentric space, that's when you're getting into absolute ridiculum. But what is the most ridiculous part of that? Is it the heliocentric space or the flat plane?
I would say the helio. Although again, let's not kick off the discussion from minutes earlier. I would agree. What's more ludicrous? Okay, so you've got a flat plane with worlds that could easily be habitable. Okay, you say it's floating in a sky vacuum, huh? Yeah, the pie bit floating in a sky vacuum, people take an objection to because it's not a ball. It's like, why would that be objectionable? It's floating in a sky vacuum, 10 to the minus 17 tour, with all these people here breathing gas. How is it any more absurd than a ball with gas surrounding it and not dispersing into a very high vacuum? I mean, it's just as absurd, and to me, you know, that's the more absurd part of this particular image. The fact that she puts the sun out a distance, so it's obviously in orbital motion, requires the flat plane measurements and the derivations that are used to infer that model of heliocentric motion. So it's got a lot of problems. The biggest of which, Brian, I agree, is the sky vacuum around the pizza pie floating in it.
Do you know how they come to the concept of space, though?
Well, you're going to go into the asymptotically flat plane in the fourth dimensional Einsteinian descriptions?
No, they give the stars infinite distance within their description of the celestial sphere with respect to a flat plane. They give them that infinite distance so that there is space, outer space there, for them to describe it. But their description is still with respect to the plane of reference of space.
They can't really agree on...
One second, Nathan. My point about this is she thinks she can replace that disk with a globe and everything's hunky-dory. It all makes sense. Whereas it doesn't. That's the point. She's literally showing the thing that is ridiculous. She's literally showing something that is 50% not that ridiculous, which is the flat plane, and 50% totally ridiculous, and trying to make a joke out of it. When the truth is that if she replaces that disk in space with a globe, that's when it really goes, it becomes completely and utterly ridiculous. At least with the flat plane, we have something that connects to reality. But when you put a globe there, that's when all reality is gone.
Right, it's akin to Dave McKeegan's video about me when he's got a thumbnail with a flat disk in space, but he's plonked triangles on them. You're like, well, at least the triangles work along the base.
On where the continents are, or how many there are, or whether the South Pole maybe extends all the way to infinity. So it's a flat Earth multiverse theory, basically. Part of the reason people...
From that one, there's her pain. Did you hear that? John just alluded to it, how they have to build their model and put things at Earth. non-real distance called infinity. So you just had to put that there. Our
They
high
are,
school.
or whether the South Pole maybe extends all the way to infinity. So
Yeah.
Smelt it coming, didn't I?
it's a flat Earth
Spidey sensors.
multiverse theory, basically. Part of the reason people believe in this is just a lack of basic science education. Some of them think
No,
It's a category error.
No, that's what she's describing of the pizza pie flying up in the sky vacuum. That's what they describe in their mathematics. Not what they say, the claims that come out of their mouth. The mathematics they utilize, that is what they are describing.
That's correct.
So let's
People
get that
don't necessarily see that
straight.
parallel when people like Dell start claiming the Earth's rising up. It's like, have a look at Einstein's principles, because that is actually the mathematical world that you describe. It's a pizza pie in a sky vacuum, a flat plane floating up. That's how it's described. For them, for heliocentrists, not us.
thinks that if the Earth was a globe,
not
then
exactly.
water just
Not
Yes.
exactly. When it comes to Einstein's equivalence principle, he's trying to describe the surface of a sphere, but only the surface of a disk will work, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, that's John's point.
He had to bring, yeah.
Right. Don't listen to what they say. Look at what they demonstrate and the mathematics. Don't let them confuse you with their words that make no sense. The mathematics, the straw man they're burning is what they actually utilize as their mathematics.
Yeah, when they're describing the equivalence principle with the example and the guy's jumping off the building and the ground's coming up towards him, right? What they're doing is just making their nonsensical, outrageous claim with respect to a horizontal plane, aren't they? That's how the maths will work out. Now, if you try and hold them to that previously, they go, well, yeah, well, the maths only works from that one point when you're describing with respect to a ball. It's all relative to the position that you're describing. And you're like, no, that's your apologies for what has already taken place after the fact. You've just used the description of a flat plane. That's how the maths describes it for Einstein. They've got to use a little bit of flat Earth first. All roads lead to a flat Earth.
just run off on the South Pole, pulled down by, I wonder what. They also misunderstand how perspective.
Oh,
There we go.
Nathan.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now
She-
that is your pain.
Go on,
innit?
Adam.
She would not say the word.
I was about to mention that. She wouldn't even say it. I wonder what? What you would hope that the audience would align behind you and say it with you in unison as you all chant the word gravity? Yeah, you hope. Share your pain.
Well, what I would point out there about to the audience about her saying that, she's implying that there is a force, I won't say the word because she was too scared to say it, of something that's pulling the water down off of the basketball towards the floor, right? Yet, I can present videos from her where she's stating this very thing that she's alluding to being a force is not a force and hasn't been, and is officially hasn't been for a long time. And they know it's not a force.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally.
Don't rumpus him,
Red
Brian.
herring.
And he's not undermining you. Go ahead, John.
Yes, I agree. This red herring they're using is it's actually their claim that they're making mathematically. They're not arguing with us. They're arguing with themselves and projecting their inequity onto us because the use of a downward vector in Newtonian maths is on an inertial plane.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, they just need a little bit of flat Earth first that must be conceded. And in this case, you can't even say the word of the force that needs to be implied in a downward vector. The word that she's going to apply won't be applied. She's going to invite the audience to use the word for her because she's scared now she's declared her own lack of force when required. So why flat earthers scare her is because we highlight the flaws in her rhetoric and she has to accept some of them And in this case, ask the audience to beg the question of a force that she hasn't got anymore on her behalf. Very sad, really. I feel a bit sad for her. I don't really.
Perspective works, how trigonometry works, how cameras work, and on it goes. But it's not just a matter of misunderstanding. If you believe that the Earth is flat...
Not a belief. Go ahead, Brian.
How trigonometry works, how cameras work, it's like, what's our point there? Trigonometry, that doesn't work on the globe.
Yeah, she's representing maths and technology as science.
Well, she did. I like that she drew a distinction between trigonometry and perspective. That's progress, guys. Let's focus on her progress and understanding. She does realize there's a difference between how we see and what we see. So I think there's hope for
her. How do we use trigonometry on the surface of our globe to determine the angle or height of something?
We don't. We need a flat Earth for it. She needs a flat Earth for it. The methodology that measures Earth is flat. And that is the methodology that she'll eventually transpose onto a globe to give her a belief that now doesn't work when she talks about trig. It doesn't work on a globe, Brian. Absolutely correct.
So this is one of the moments, you know, pre-show when you was asking, was she talking about us? This is one of those points where I think, why would you bring up trig but not celestial navigation and just go, we don't know anything about trig? It sounds like she doesn't know anything about celestial navigation and thinks it's trig. Because where else are you invoking trig?
Yeah.
Well, it sounds to me like she's trying to make how the argument used to be that perspective versus Earth curve calculator. Earth curve calculator is the trig. Camera is perspective. Both of these require a flat plane. Why are we arguing?
What she needs is a LARPer to argue with. What's that? You want to have an argument about perspective versus curve count maths? Oh, we won't give you that. We'll just well, I was about to say a swear word. We'll undermine your premises for the globe maths based on a 2020 argument that's been around for a while that bends everything in rebuttal by you and your side. But, I mean, back then, you could have had that argument. You just need a LARPer, someone who understands that we've progressed beyond those arguments and no one will have them anymore. So you need someone to role-play a flat earther and have those crappy old feast of nonsense arguments with you. About perspective versus earth curve maths. Yeah, the begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking earth curve mathematics was undermined way before 2020. What, 2016, 2017? Yeah, I want to go back in time and have the arguments because you haven't kept up to date with the flat earth debate, it seems, Sabine. How quaint.
She doesn't even realise that earth curve maths doesn't involve perspective. In fact, denies it. The very opposite. It has to ignore perspective when we view things. For it to actually match up to a supposed ball.
As there's a slim chance she may actually be watching this stuff. Because it has got her name in the title. And, you know, a lot of people are vain and will look for their own material and see what people are saying about them. So were she to come across, given that I'm actually sending people to her channel to let her know that we are responding directly to her as flat earthers, like her title suggests. That being said, let's do the call to action. Please let Sabine know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. There is that link going directly now in the chat. So you can do that as I waffle and moan about the fact that in response to this suggestion, she may as well be informed about why the earth curve maths fails right here and now. And that is to say that when you utilise earth curve mathematics, the mathematics for the object you are going to be using in the claim, let's say it's a building, will be given in a value that does not change with distance. Feet or meters only. That is to say a 10-foot wall that you are stood next to, you'd have to crick your neck slightly to see the top of the wall. And a 10-foot wall at 1 billion miles away is still a 10-foot wall in your mathematics, and the only reason you can't see it in that circumstance is because earth curve gets in the way. But it's still 10 feet. Obviously, if you drew it with two straight lines on a flat earth according to that mathematics, we'd see it at 10 million miles. Because it's still 10 feet and you've got a straight line to it in the diagram. It's just two straight lines with 10 million miles written on them, as opposed to one with earth curve in the way when it ignores the fact that things get smaller in angular size. Your maths doesn't have that. 10-foot walls, 10 foot at all distances. Go ahead, Brian.
Want me to give the example, Nathan? The mathematical disqualification of work off. In case she is listening.
Well, Black Swan?
No, the 6-foot boat for a person with their eye line at the water. Go on, just keep going. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. Come on.
Well, it's old hat is the point, isn't it? I mean, she wants to have an argument. I said LARPer because people won't have these arguments anymore because everything's been put to bed as far as the debate is concerned. If you're keeping up with the actual debate, regardless of what the stereotypical flat earther might think, because they haven't made their way to the actual debate and aren't on the cutting edge of actually proving Earth is flat and sphere is debunked conclusively. But for those who are, this is old hat. That's the point.
It is.
Right, but we're at this point.
Yeah, John.
At this point, we're having a discussion. The discussion is about they're not able to realize that what they call Earth curve mathematics is actually still using surface level as a horizontal plane of reference.
Point out that in her thumbnail, it says, not just dumb, but dangerous. That's what it says on the thumbnail. Not just dumb, but dangerous. Why flat earthers scare me?
What are we dangerous to? Her worldview?
Yeah. It just, like I said it in jest at the beginning. I bring it up because I only just noticed that out of the corner of my eye. And I jokingly associated it by segue to Dom Jolly and Fight the Flat Earth. You know, they're saying it's just a joke. We're here to entertain them, but simultaneously with the gateway drug and very dangerous. I didn't realise that she'd actually put the word dangerous on her thumbnail.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, that was one of the things I was hoping you'd see when I sent it to you. First, straight away.
Wow.
Just to give a bit of clarity, her last video concerning flat Earth was, I think it was titled as Flat Earth Science. Wrong but not stupid. Something like that. So now we're dumb. We weren't stupid in our second video, but now we're dumb. We were confused in our first video. Our second video, we're not stupid, and now we're dumb and dangerous.
Well, we threaten her career, really, don't we? We undermine the very principle that she's being paid for. So in terms of dangerous, yeah, we're dangerous to your career if what we say becomes public in a way that's common knowledge, that's the word. If what we say becomes common knowledge, then your career's over, love. So yeah, we are dangerous from that perspective. Although I could give a toss whether or not your lies get exposed.
You also have to believe
We're
in a
pointing out, aren't we, that her misinterpretation of flat Earth angles to start, yeah, is the whole premise of her doctorate. That's why she's scared. Because this is where John's point comes in with the astronomy. Batter it. Because as he said earlier, yeah, they have to realise it's a flat plane mathematics that they're dealing with. And she's intelligent enough to know that her base grid system is a flat plane. Yeah? And then it's then how she interprets that. Well, that is fundamentally undermines her whole doctorate, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes. And basically, they're having an argument with themselves and they're projecting that onto us. That's what this is all about. That's why they can't get rid of us, because they need us.
Yeah, to project their pain onto. Exactly. That's what I was trying to sum up in the pre-show. And I'm like, they're coming to us with questions that we used to seem to feel the need to answer. It's like, no, this is them coming to terms with the realization of the reality they once held not being true, and because of which they've got a lot of questions. Now, they want to, in their mind, retain their global belief as they question us. Because it's suddenly our problem? No, this is their projection. This is them coming to terms with it. This is the fears and concerns they have when they ask all these questions. Doesn't mean there weren't questions we asked too, when we projected out our pain when we first got here, which I'm sure we all did. But it doesn't alter the actual scenario. These aren't things that we need to concern ourselves with. When Sabine starts pointing out what she thinks are flaws and turn out to be flat earth measurements that are needed for her belief, that undermines her very career and is dangerous to that only.
global conspiracy.
Oh, I've got to play at least more than a second. Just let me play at least 10 more seconds.
That's hiding the truth for no particular reason. For starters, you must believe that most of physics is wrong and
appeal to consensus and category error.
No,
She's
she's doing her
global
pain once again. Yeah? What a statement from her. She didn't say what physics is wrong. She just has to straw man us and tell us we're stupid. Yeah? But this is the trouble for her. No, the physics we're citing is correct. It's you interpreting it in your religious fundy view, which means gas can go down, go boom, boom. It's not our physics that's got a problem, look, it's yours.
Exactly.
Exactly, and she said that. She got cut off. She said it right before that. Globe Earth. She appealed to globe Earth mathematics. If you rewind that, you'll hear it.
in a global conspiracy that's hiding the truth for no particular reason. For starters, you must believe that most of physics is wrong and
yeah, but she's thrown in that global thing simply because that's her religion, and she feels the need to do it. It's like they're all doing it. Every TV channel, everything. You just can't stop using the word globe and global these days. They never say across the world. You never hear that anymore. They don't just describe things. There has to be an agenda. But what she said there, most of physics. What she's talking about there was exactly what Adam was saying. That's what was going to be my point too. Like, what's most of physics? She's literally calling her pseudosciences physics when they're not physics. They're pseudoscience. And that's what most of physics. You mean all the stuff that you're calling physics that we are showing is not physics? We are showing has no relation to reality, no proper relation to reality. That's based around a paradigm, and that most of it has no relevance whatsoever. That's what she's talking about when she says most of physics.
Prior to responding to us, she used to laugh and joke and giggle about how the physicists got it wrong and how hilarious it was to show how wrong they used to be. And that was all very amusing to her. Suddenly, oh no, if you're a flat earther, you have to admit that physics is wrong. What, like most of your videos prior to covering this subject? Because that's mostly what you do, is point out the contradictions within your own nonsense. And how amusing it is that they're wrong. And how they used to think this and now they think that. And you're keeping everyone up to date with the new rhetoric, which is what it is. You just call your rhetoric physics, your pseudoscience physics. But it's just amusing when it's shown to be wrong in your eyes because you're the one telling people about how up to date you are with the quote unquote physics. It wouldn't need updating if it was right in the first place and it was physics. But that's what her shtick is. She's now projecting what she does on a daily basis in her videos onto us by saying, oh no, you'd have to admit physics is wrong. What, like you go around doing all day long on your videos?
Yeah, it's funny until it happens to you, Sabine.
Yep. Funny when she's reporting on all her colleagues that have got it wrong over the years. Well, if only they'd have known what we now know with all this maths.
and
This is
physicists
the point, though, isn't it? She got what wrong? Well, in her mind, she got science wrong. And that shows her complete lack of understanding of what science is. As you alluded to earlier, the correct word is her rhetoric, her ball earth interpretation of facts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a category error. We're not appealing to physics. Measurements of Earth are flat. That's what we appeal to. But cause and effect relationship, science, physics, that's not what we deal with when we're talking about proving Earth being flat. And neither is it what you've referred to when you use a flat Earth to claim a globe. You need a flat Earth measurement. It's not physics. She's in a category error.
are just making things up. We're all part of a big conspiracy.
No, we would actually challenge people who say that. We show where Earth's measured flat. We show where your claims of sky vacuums fail with natural law examples. We don't turn around and say, all of NASA must be lying. That's an appeal to consensus fallacy straw man. We don't do that.
Geophysicists, they're also in on it.
Geophysicists sounds like a pseudoscience to me. Astrophysics, another pseudoscience.
Astrophysicists,
Pseudoscience. No cause and effect reasoning, establishing hypotheses, that's scientific predictions, with validation, actualization of said predictions, that's experimentation, that's the scientific method. Astrophysics doesn't have it, it's a pseudoscience, love.
all liars. Everyone who...
Liars, pseudoscience. Yeah? That is to say you've appealed to it as physics and it isn't? You don't know your own category error.
who's ever been involved in launching a rocket into space.
This is one giant stereotype straw man about a consensus fallacy we don't have.
Or putting a satellite into...
What's begging the question?
She just talked about launching a rocket into space. That's begging the question.
Yes, it is.
When she, within what the context she's speaking.
No, spot on, yes. Straight up begging the question. Prove space.
To orbit is part of that.
Orbit, another begging the question fallacy based on flat Earth measurements.
Yeah, that's the key here, though, is what she's calling science should be called interpretation of measurements that contradict the measurements. That's what she believes science is.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
In context of what?
Yeah. Calculations that contradict flat Earth measurements is what she calls science.
That conspiracy too. Moon landings didn't happen. The ISS not in orbit. Every single photo that's ever been taken of Earth from space.
That's something we say. She's watched us.
She's
That's
also
what we
said
say.
the word orbit twice.
We
John's not
specifically say that.
interjected.
We say every single... Let's just hear it in full context before I call it, actually. Let me just give it a J.
Orbit is part of that conspiracy too. Moon landings didn't happen. The ISS not in orbit. Every single photo that's ever been taken of Earth from space, fake.
That's our rhetoric. She's watched us. She's watching us. Hey, Sabine, hi! How's it going? Yes, space is a straight-up second law of thermodynamics violation. Glad to have you here. Like and share. Next time, put a link to my video.
That's not what she's doing.
Yes, she is. She's connected
No, she's not what she does. She's made a logical inference from if the Earth was flat.
I don't think
If that statement is true, then these things have to be false.
Well, okay, let's spin on it. Let's just see.
Sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? But then lots of people also believe that an omniscient being keeps track of who they have sex with. A recent representative poll in North America found that 5% think...
Ooh, this is very telling.
Up,
so it tends to be the case that people who, in my humble experience debating people, brace against it the most are people who tend to have a few skeletons in their closet that they'd rather not have, come out. When it especially comes to the idea of God in this discussion, people brace against it because in their mind, it's far easier to get away with heinous acts they may have committed, indiscretions that they may have had, if there's no consequences, if there's no CCTV watching and there is no God, then it may as well have not happened. Well, I'm not really accountable for any of the horrible things I did. Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just a skeleton in the closet. If, however, there's a God, then suddenly you are quite responsible for all those heinous things that you did, and you have to kind of reflect on them to an extent that you may not like. Hold a mirror up to your own actions that you may not like. And typically, people draw, when making videos such as these, on their personal experience. And Sabine has drawn on number of sexual partners. Now, isn't that fascinating? I'm not necessarily saying there is 100% certain a connection there, but I'm just saying by past experience with examples, I could show how this could be her holding a mirror up to herself and suggesting that if there was a God, then the number of sexual partners in this study would be something that people would have to concern themselves with. And there's no way she would be concerning herself with that. I mean, obviously it isn't connected to her personally. It's just a hard-hitting example that she picked out of the random sky, right? I love things like this. Very, very telling.
Yeah, I think she's been sleeping around a bit in the physics department.
I was so much more subtle than you, Adam, but thank you.
Thing to pick.
Thank you.
It's a very psychologically telling of all the things that you would invoke God for. You will look at yourself, to me, in that case, and the statement she's given clearly does seem that she has a moral compass. She's got an issue with her own behaviour. Yeah, that's, I think, very, very telling that she would try to poo-poo God, and that's why, because she feels guilty towards God.
Perhaps.
But my initial interjection there was just the use of Christianity there. There's a little off, I think, there to attack Christians and to draw the analogy as well. It's her belief. This is such projection. She's the one with the belief. She brings up beliefs.
Well, what I would say about her, just very briefly, is she, because of her position, right, which means she's what she would consider to be a science educator, because she would be considered via mainstream standards to be that, she has no one to blame. Can she even blame NASA? If it's all shown tomorrow that it's all complete rubbish and the whole world is aware that it's all complete rubbish, or this globe heliocentrism nonsense, who can she blame? People who listen to her can blame her. Who can she turn around and blame? Werner von Braun. Who can she blame? That's the problem. She has it worse than anyone because she herself is the one that's promoting the very thing and trying to educate people on the very thing.
Your question's malformed or badly phrased. Who would blame her? Dangerous, you say? Sabine? Dangerous? No. Who would blame her? Many is the answer, Brian. That's why she thinks we're dangerous. Because she's the primary source of a lot of this garbage, isn't she?
Yeah, her and her ilk, basically.
Yeah, you know what I mean. As a conduit, when she's mocking how wrong her colleagues were in the rhetoric prior to their changes, that she... Who's the other one? There's another female astrophysicist who does a similar thing. Kind of chubby-looking English woman. What's her name? She does the exact same thing.
Becky. Oh, Dr. Becky.
Dr. Becky. Same exact principle, right? So Dr. Becky's pulling apart how, hey, check out in the 1970s, they thought this was the case. But then this guy comes along and check out this whiteboard full of maths, and now we think this. Look how amazingly smart I am with the up-to-date rhetoric that changed, and how wrong they used to be, and how I'm pointing out how wrong they used to be. Give it, 6 months, Dr. Becky will be telling her audience, just like Sabine is, that the flat earthers talking about science are dangerous. Because they'll point out how all physicists are wrong, like you do on a regular basis when you're keeping people up to date with the changes in your rhetoric, and how wrong they used to be. But it's us that are telling you physics is wrong. No, your pseudoscience was always pseudoscience. None of it was ever proven. It's ever changing because it's rhetoric. Right, let's do a bit more.
The Earth is flat, and another 6% aren't quite sure. I'm not quite sure how many people lie in these polls, but there's no doubt that interest in flat Earth...
Go back.
Yeah, just a 10-second, just to...
Lots of people also believe that an omniscient being keeps track of who they have sex with. A recent representative poll in North America found that 5% think the Earth is flat and another 6% aren't quite sure. I'm not quite sure how many people lie in these polls, but there's no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember Danny Faulkner came out with a video there recently saying this movement is growing, and someone else somewhat notable came out with a similar statement, and now Sabine is bringing this out. That same poll that she's talking about, now I think the poll is not correct. I think there's a lot more than 5%, but it doesn't matter because that same poll back in 2018 or something came out, and it was 2% of America. Now it's 5%, and there's 6% that don't know. That's a possible 11%, right? Yes, we are definitely growing, and yes, we are dangerous to you.
How about the bigger picture here? You missed that. She's a theoretical physicist. What the hell is she doing on here, bringing out frigging polls on conspiracies? Why doesn't she get to the ball-tard spinning space monkey evidence? Huh? So this is what you're reduced to. Hey, Bruce Sabine, I'm talking to you. I'm going to treatment your dumbass again.
What Kiwi's saying is that the book stops with her. That's how we were phrasing it earlier, but he's putting more of a severity on it. He's saying, given that the book stops with you, love, what you got? This is what you've got, right, Kiwi?
Yeah. Polls? Really? Is that all you got? What about airplanes and spectacles? Don't you have those? Remember the last time you did this?
Mobile phones.
You clown. All right, we'll go over that too.
Oh, that interest in flat Earth ideas has spiked in the past decade, as you can see in the Google search trend.
Why does it have the what's this birds aren't real thing in the background? What's that about?
That's an attack, personal attack on us, as if someone claimed birds weren't real. Like someone saying the Earth is flat is the same thing as saying that birds aren't real.
No,
Okay.
some flat earthers said this birds are real. I heard them.
There's flat earthers that say birds aren't real.
Joke.
No flat
It's a
earther said
joke.
that,
It's a
Adam.
meme that's meant to make. It's a joke. It's a meme that's meant to make fun of conspiracy theorists by stating, as a conspiracy, that the birds aren't real. It's a big joke online.
Okay.
In 2009, the International Flat Earth Society set up a website. In 2013, part of its members set up a wiki and discussion forum. Around 2015, the topic started to appear on YouTube and spread from here. In 2017, the first Flat Earth conference took place, which attracted a lot of media attention. YouTube made big changes.
Pardon me.
Right, what the hell? Who cares? It wouldn't matter if it had 99% penetration and we were wrong. Just show us how we're wrong. It doesn't matter what the majority believe. If the majority believed it was flat Earth, this point would still have no validity in terms of the strength or weakness of each argument. Who cares? The numbers. This is a pure, unadulterated appeal to consensus.
Theoretical physics.
Right, but
Theoretical physics is concerned with this, Nathan.
Oh, theoretical physicists are concerned with YouTube stats. Yeah, good point. Let's keep it on brass tacks. Exactly. So, if you were wondering what your theoretical physicist has got to say on the matter, she'll direct you towards YouTube stats.
Just to its recommendation algorithm, and interest tapered somewhat off after that. But rather than just fading away, in recent years, interest in flat Earth has been on the rise again.
Like a fart not obeying the laws of entropy, it just keeps hanging around.
You missed it, Nathan. Go back and listen to what she says about the polls, about the stats. Listen to what, not about the 5% thing. Listen to what she says about. Listen to how she skims over something.
And spread from here. In 2017, the first Flat Earth conference took place, which attracted a lot of media attention. YouTube made big changes to its recommendation algorithm, and interest tapered somewhat off after that.
Is that the bit you mean?
Yeah. Yes. You mean YouTube had to try and censor us out of existence? Sabine.
well,
In 2019, when Congress, one second, John. When Congress told YouTube to do something about it, Congress in the US, see the way she's not bringing that part in? Things tapered off somewhat. Yeah, in other words, they still didn't stop us. We
tried to censor it and suppress the information, but it only tapered off somewhat.
Yeah, on the behest of Congress. Go on, John, sorry.
Yeah, but this goes back to, the interest in the topic. I mean, we can show all of their calculations that they think are science require a flat plane measurement. They have to have us to argue with. But it's in their minds. But what it is they're arguing with themselves. It's their contradictions that they're trying to deal with, and they're projecting that onto us. That's why there are all these straw men and everything else. They're in La La Land.
But rather than just fading away, in recent years, interest in flat Earth has been on the rise again. It's probably to no small part because of TikTok, which has now become a haven for flat earthers. Scientists don't take flat Earth.
Yeah, I agree to laugh. Because of TikTok.
Seriously, and I can see where they're coming from, but I think it's a mistake.
You just had an animation of an asteroid hitting the pizza pie in the sky vacuum.
To me, flat earthers are the first symptom of a much bigger problem. They show us what happened.
Now she's got images of people wearing tinfoil hats. Is that how you see us? Yeah? Is this your pain relief to mock us?
No, damage control.
No, it's pain relief. These people
Yeah,
are
we're
beneath
paying
me.
but they gotta get that story out there.
Go ahead, Neil.
They gotta get that story out there. They were a bunch of nutters because they're in serious pain.
But she's one person. I realise that en masse, that's true, but she is doing this, right? This is her video. And what she's doing is going, these people are beneath me. I'm a highly educated intellectual. Flat earthers are just idiots in tinfoil hats. Yeah? And she wants the audience to understand how she wants us to be viewed. Still, very telling. This is how she wants us to be viewed. Okay, all right, no worries. I couldn't give a toss if everybody around me, that's why I appeal to it in reverse. I don't care if it's 100%, 99% penetration of everybody thinking Earth is flat. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true unless you can prove it. Likewise, by comparison, when we had 99.9% penetration in the Western world of everybody believing you're on a sphere, it didn't necessarily make it true because there wasn't any evidence. Just a load of lies based on flat Earth measurements. Now, the fact that nobody knew it and the consensus was very much in the majority of a globe belief didn't make it true. And it wouldn't matter when the first person comes along and shows you Earth's measured flat for these globe claims, you know. Us thinking we're on a sphere requires Earth to be measured flat. Isn't that curious? Well, you're just one man, Earth a sphere. It's a scrap standard. Likewise, her appealing to consensus, the audience, the majority. She's got a nice big audience, 1 million+ people. If they all think we're stupid, what, that'll make the Earth a globe? Well, no, but it'll share her pain with us. We just look into it as being a tell. That's all this is. A Sabine tell.
Yeah. Well, it's an important part of debate if you're not worried about logic or reason or getting the other person that you're debating with to see your point of view. If you're playing like I think they call it 4D chess now or whatever, but if you're trying to influence the people watching the debate, this is a tactic to try to make your opponent look crazy. Like, for having this position, you're obviously a nut, you know? So it's important, but especially when you have a belief system that's based on what they know.
Well,
yeah, that's the irony.
Into our comments.
That's the irony, isn't it, John? What she's calling stupid, saying these people here, the people who say Earth is flat, are tinfoil hat wearing nutters. And yet the irony is that the measurements that have been derived from there, it may be belief for these tinfoil hat nutters in the example, as far as she is concerned, and I'll take it as read that they are just flat Earth believers. But their belief in the plane that they think they're on is the ground-based measurement, the genesis of your sphere belief. There's the irony. Go on, Brian.
Yeah, if you look into her comments, she has thousands of comments, and it's growing by the hour. And I was the only one. I think there was one other comment where someone asked her, "You think this," and I'm supposed to be the crazy one, just threw some heliocentrism at her and said, "And I'm supposed to be." So that person was probably a flat earther. But other than that, I didn't see any other flat earthers in there, with the exception of me. And I asked her. I said to her, "Sabine, I'm 9 years at this. If you want to have a conversation about it, you can record the conversation, or I can go on live with you, and you can discuss it with me." I didn't ask her for a debate, right? I just wanted a conversation, right? I didn't ask her. I just offered her a conversation, just in case. You know, there they are. There's somebody if you want it. Now, I don't know if she'll ever see that, because she has thousands upon thousands of comments of ballers agreeing with her, and ballers, loads of them, making up stuff. I asked a flat earther this thing, and they told me that, or they ran away. All this stuff that never happened. They're all making up scenarios that never happened. Most of them have never actually addressed the flat earther. And even they have, what they are claiming happened is not what happened. You know, I asked a flat earther this thing, and the answer they gave me was that, and I debunked them this way. Or when I asked them about this topic, they ran away. It's like, no, that never happened. You know, they're literally making this stuff, and these people are making up in their own head.
They're
and saying
inventing.
it's okay to put
They're
that out on
inventing
the
a
internet.
LARPer in their own mind and creating a narrative in
Yes.
the comment section. Whereas some of them have started actually living out that LARPer that they create in their mind's eye to have the argument with, because we're not having that argument with them. We've debunked all of those positions. So the guy that they're arguing with in the comments, they give that description you're describing, is what they're starting to become when they try on the furry costume of Flat Earth as a LARPer.
What if she calls you bluff? What if she calls your bluff, Brian? Are you prepared?
Brian would absolutely take it to the cleaners. What are you questioning that for?
I am prepared.
Is he prepared?
all your polls,
What outrage?
you have all your polls ready.
Oh, you got your stats. Yeah, Brian, you must get some statistics. Do you want me to help you out with YouTube statistics to counter her arguments?
So when people realize they can't understand modern science, don't.
Modern science? What's that? What's modern science? You mean pseudoscience? Stuff that hasn't adhered to the scientific method. It needs that little caveat, does it? The little weasel word that you put in there. Modern science? What about just science? Oh, you haven't got any of that, have you? That's what we point out. That's why we're dangerous.
Postmodern science.
You know what you're talking about? The same science M. Scott's Beach was talking about. We're stuck in the past, 6th grade. Science has advanced.
Yeah, it's gone on in their minds.
Go on, John, because you said it earlier and I thought it was a great point.
Yeah, it's what they call modern science is just calculations that contradict measurements. That's what they believe. That's science.
That's contradictions of a globe that contradict the measurements of a flat Earth. Just to be absolutely specific. That's what she's calling science.
Calculations. Sorry,
Go on.
Adam.
Go on, Brian.
So there's a little bit at the end when she's advertising her things that you'll probably cut off, but let it play as she'll show you her science. She has a slidey graph with correlation on one side.
Oh, with the hypothetical measurement of penguins' weight.
Yeah. And there's the correlation to prove it's science.
Can't wait to see that, Nathan. It's coming.
And therefore throw out even the most basic scientific knowledge on the rationale of skepticism. Flat earthers are somewhat extreme in that they're actually throwing out evidence that they could test themselves if they weren't so bad at science. But the underlying problem is much deeper, because in most of modern science...
What's this science? If you're going to destroy us, you should at least have the courtesy to say, and here's an example. Do you know what I mean? Not just a hand wave. Yeah, there's stuff that disproves it, but they just don't bother doing it. Which again,
and they're bad at it anyway.
Oh, if I was to ask Sabine to take an elevation angle to Polaris, that'd be a lovely flat Earth proof, and she could do that.
She just couldn't do it. She's just not good at measurements.
No, that's a good point by Adam. That's right. Flip it right on her dumbass.
The average person can't test evidence for themselves. This is...
Why not? Well, that's a glaring, outrageous, baseless assertion. Why can't the average person test stuff for themselves? I'm pretty sure most average people are capable of varying and manipulating things.
I have.
You know,
he hasn't seen my polls yet.
According to her, Eratosthenes did an experiment, right? You put a stick in the ground and you can measure an elevation angle to the sun with it. It's an elevation angle with respect to a flat plane, though.
Yeah, as long as you're measuring a flat Earth, you can claim you're proving a sphere calculation.
Right. She's projecting what she's doing onto us.
Also,
that's their entire problem.
Yeah, it's also affirming your statement earlier, which is to say that that process with Al-Biruni or any other claim to be science that they suggest with experiments, in quotes, they're not, just to make that clear. But what they say is science, because it is by their standard, their pseudoscience, to be more correct, is a flat Earth measurement, then globe calculation. That's what they call science. Bonkers, isn't it?
This is why I think it makes sense to identify the origin of this problem. And some scientists.
The origin of the problem is the flat Earth measurements you use to Polaris to make your globe. That's the problem for you. It's definitely not a problem for me. I mean, I don't know what she's going to babble on about now. Oh, Dunning-Kruger? What, people overestimating their own intellectual ability? When I talk about an elevation angle measurement with respect to 90 degrees below Polaris, there's no overestimation of my intellect. There's no questioning by Mr. Kruger about how well I did in a test. This is garbage.
Scientists have actually studied this. They found that the scientific literacy of flat earthers tends to be
based on the Dunning-Kruger curve. This is what you've got, QE.
Yeah. What she got? She's a theoretical physicist, / psychologist. And we need more polls.
I think we should compare how intellectual flat earthers are on the Dunning-Kruger scale. I mean, this is just pure fantastic globe proof from their guru when they're wondering what she's got to say on the subject. This is very good.
Below population average.
The best part about this is it's psychological statistics that she cited, that because on average, and that stat may be right, doesn't matter whether it is or it isn't, because that's an average. So there are going to be some flat earthers that are cleverer than the cleverest ball earther, or there'll be a distribution. And that's the point. This is a normalized distribution that she's describing for citation, which is statistics, Sabine. It's no support dog. And even if it was correct, fundamentally, it doesn't demonstrate anything about who's right or wrong. It just shows that across a spectrum of intelligence, both sets of people can have all the people can have different opinions. Some will think it's flat. Some will go. If anything, it kind of shows there is no correlation in terms of whether or not your intellect or not is. That's just a distribution, a standard distribution issue. So fundamentally, she's quoting statistics as a proof, which is
garbage.
Correlation.
It's garbage.
Well, no, you're kind of missing. I'm not trying to attack you, but you're missing the point. She's saying that in scientific literacy, right, understanding, what science? Could you define the science you're claiming to be science, please? Or define what you're claiming to be science and what that entails and what that encompasses? Because does that mean that because I, as well as that, I don't know anyone who was brought into this poll. I don't know anyone who was asked this or whatever. Yeah. So what is it that you're claiming? Because is it that I deny what you claim to be physics? And I don't just deny it, I can show it with proof. Is it because of that I'm suddenly illiterate to what?
Their science. You summed it up already. Illiterate to their pseudoscience. Because you deny it, because you don't do it yourself, and even if you did, you couldn't because you're stupid.
At the same time,
what they would try to lure you into is a discussion about correct calculations. For example, PV equals nRT and gas law, how it's described. They're trying to lure you in that direction to say, see, there are calculations that are based on measurement that do work. Therefore, my globe is valid.
But
it's the direction you want to take that.
But you've got to show her that, that is calculation then. It's not science. The PV equals nRT isn't science.
No, it is
and if
not.
you was to state it was, you've got to buy the short and haven't you again? Because you can show her intellect to be incorrect. As she stands there saying we don't know what science is, she's citing areas that are demonstrably non-science in of themselves. At best, it's natural law. It's just a formula, Sabine.
Look, you're giving her too much. She hasn't given us this. What she's given us currently is psychological statistics, because psychology is a well-known science, isn't it? That'd be a no.
It's a humanity.
much more...
If it portrays itself as such, it is a pseudoscience.
confident of their scientific knowledge than the average person. On top of this, we
So she's showing flat earthers' lack of scientific knowledge with humanitarian statistics. Good job, good job. This is what your astrophysicists will give you as well. Garbage if you ever went to them. And now that they know it's gone to them, because hopefully some of my audience has actually told her, please let her know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Currently 125 people actually watching, which is pretty good. Yeah, then she's going to be made aware of the failings. So what? Show our flat earthers don't know what science is by way of statistics. Great job.
then get echo chambers in social media that reinforce their misjudgment. The trouble is that these two issues, lack of knowledge and an inability to recognize this lack of knowledge,
Sorry,
are
Nathan.
bound.
Sorry. We get echo chambers on social media that reinforce our misjudgment. A minute ago, we were just wrong. Or we weren't able to. It was that we are incapable of understanding science. Now we have a possible misjudgment. It's funny how when she had to bring it to some kind of reality, which is this is social media. We are the echo chamber she's trying to claim is an echo chamber. We're not an echo chamber, but we are what she's trying to claim to be an echo chamber. Suddenly she has to take a softer stance on it because she knows she's talking rubbish. She knows it. Even if she was only referring to Globebusters, she knows she's talking rubbish. Because even Globebusters adhere far more to what actual natural science is than she does. So even Globebusters, they do, Neil. No, come on,
Anyway,
Neil.
we're coming
Globebusters
again.
are adhering to
Hold on.
reality.
Just
So,
so we can
come
move
on,
on quickly.
let's be real here.
Okay. Let's not debate a hypothetical about what Globebusters may or may
Stupid,
not
like
know.
to attack
Yeah,
that.
are they making videos about Sabine by name and sending people to her?
We're directly coming against her money. This is her job, right?
Yes.
She's a theoretical scientist, whatever it is, physicist. What is that? This comes right against her way of making a living.
Yes.
She's got to speak out against it.
Correct. We're a threat. When she puts dangerous, that's what she's referring to in the thumbnail, yes.
To become increasingly widespread, simply because, unfortunately, scientific knowledge isn't heritable. We're born without knowing anything of modern science. We have to learn everything, and the more
We're born into heliocentric rhetoric. That's how we're brainwashed from birth.
sophisticated science becomes, the more learning.
So more fundamentally, we all understand the heliocentric paradigm before we even taught science. One of the first things that's put in our head, left, right, centre, in our nurseries, in our play, everywhere, that heliocentric model is ingrained in us before we do first grade GCSE science, or we even learn any of it. That's already instilled.
Yeah, but the thing is, the knowledge that they teach you in grade school, middle school, high school, you can go and get a science textbook, and it'll tell you the difference between qualification and quantification, what's necessary for an experiment. These are the basic fundamental understandings required to move forward in that subject.
That's the word, John. That's the word, understanding. Now, she's not asking for understanding. She's saying, can you learn it? Can you learn it? Big difference between having understanding and learning something.
Yeah, comprehension she's talking about. Can you comprehend the rhetoric? Well, before you've even learned what science is, the rhetoric is firmly pushed into your comprehension.
Right, but the rhetoric that she's talking about with the globe Earth is running contradictory to the information you learn in science class at the most basic fundamental, like the beginnings of it.
That requires. Sometime in the middle of the 20th century or so, we reached a point where modern science just stopped being comprehensible to anyone without a special degree, and this
There you go. Told you, more projection. I'm smart, they're dumb, I understand this stuff, they don't. That's all this is.
is still the case. I don't really understand how CRISPR works.
There it is. So to make it seem like this isn't directly about her, she then uses herself as examples of things she doesn't know. Nah, love, no. I take what was said as read, and it is incredibly telling, because that is what you're saying. I've got these degrees. I understand the rhetoric of my own pseudoscience. The flat earthers, dumb tinfoil hat wearing numpties, they can't even comprehend it. They're too dumb to do the experiments. Not that they are. And that's what we expose. But this is pain relief. This is her appealing to her audience so that they understand what's what based on her being the authority, and her, in a humble way, I mean, oh so humble, telling us how she doesn't know something. Yeah, you're about as transparent as it gets, love. But it amuses me greatly.
I've no idea what Teichmuller theory is, I don't know how phones work, and I yet have to figure out how to properly fertilize our lawn. There's just too much knowledge in the world to learn it all, and unfortunately no one has yet developed a pill for quantum mechanics. But
I mean, you don't need quantum mechanics if you're talking about God, maybe, but if we're talking about the nature of Earth being measured, you just need a flat plane of reference. Flat Earth will give you that, no worries. You need it for your globe as well, by the way.
you don't actually need to learn any physics to see that the Earth isn't flat.
It's a category error. What, flat? What, an aspect? What, like a geometric aspect? Yeah, that's not physics. Cause and effect relationships have got nothing to do with geometric aspects. She doesn't know what science is, does she?
Even leaving aside that it requires you to believe.
Telephones. I don't understand our telephones. That's technology, Sabine. Might be a bit of science in there, but if you're going to work out how a phone works, it's just the technology. That shows her ignorance, the category she gave.
Oh,
and fertilising a lawn.
You're so sweet. You're like, what? Because the semiconductors in there, at some point, you can trace it back to some sort of scientific validity if you really tried to.
Being intellectually honest, yes, but I don't think that's what she meant. She meant just, I don't understand that bit of technology. That's what she meant.
Even this huge conspiracy, flat Earth.
She's saying, because I don't understand the apps and how they are programmed and how the silicon works and how the traces work on the circuit board. I don't know how a phone works. That's contextually what she's saying. But, therefore, there's so much information out there, not everyone can know everything. But in the context of this discussion, as was alluded to prior to me making all these disclaimers, you need degrees. Things I've got, by the way, says Sabine, to understand this stuff.
It's a strange statement. Is she saying fundamentally she couldn't learn how a phone works? Because I could. If I applied myself, that's what I wanted to do. Just like we've all applied ourselves here in this field. Mastering her physics so we could take her apart, yeah? I didn't have a physics degree, but I know pretty much the equivalent, and certainly within the fields that are relevant to flat Earth, I know those topics. So I'm not sure what her disclaimer is, unless she's saying she's incapable of extracurricular learning.
And nor would it be righteous if me to say, well, I pretty much have a good idea how a phone does work. It was one of those things when Craig introduced himself, my tech guy, as a flat earther. He and I shared our love for a particular YouTube channel who's gone a bit more political now, Lewis Rossman, because he does board level repair on phones and laptops and Macs and things. And I just find that very interesting. I just watch it because I'm a bit of a geek. I did an electronics engineering course when I was in college. So I do have a vague idea. I'm not going to pretend to be a phone expert. But does that make me intellectually superior? Because by her examples of things she doesn't know, she's not intellectually inferior. Well, should I then say, well, because I do know the basic construct of a phone and how it operates, I am intellectually superior? And just because I don't know your pseudoscience according to your stereotype, it's like, this is a standard that is so garbage level. I mean, QE's already done the job for me here. I mean, that's why I'm getting to this point so quickly. Yeah, she's supposed to be just presenting globe evidence that smashes us out of the park, leaves no doubt in the mind of the viewer. That's the standard you'd hope for. I mean, again, this is like me when I was pre-Flat Earther, watching NASA videos, because I still am actually subscribed to Science at NASA and get their email updates. Not that I read them anymore. But when I did, I was always left with that hollow, empty feeling after watching one of them. And I can imagine a globe believer coming to this video thinking, brilliant! What I'm expecting out of a Flat Earthers Are Dangerous video is to highlight why their garbage is garbage, Flat Earthers, quickly in the first 5 seconds, so it keeps my attention on the topic of the thumbnail and title, and then go into smashing it out of the park with a stone cold globe proof that just puts them in their place and shuts them up, because she's the authority on the subject. But when you get to this video, as the outsider I'm describing in example, and you get YouTube stats and flat earthers are tinfoil hat wearers and I do know this stuff and they couldn't do basic science, you're going to be left with this very hollow, empty feeling at the end of the process. That is to say, the video won't give you what you would have potentially hoped for, which is just a, here's globe proof, smashing it out of the park, look how stupid they are. By example, really easy to show and for you to understand. And I'm the authority, you can take my word for it, but here's 1,000 examples that you could do easily yourself, proving a globe. She's not giving you any of that. So you're going to leave going, huh. I mean, so my answers to this problem, this conundrum that I'm now thinking about, flat earth and that, is to just demean my opponents as stupid tinfoil hat wearing idiots and show how the stats aren't really showing they're gaining popularity. That's what I'm going to take away from this. But also recognise how smart you are, because you know what's what. Okay, that's great. Thanks for that. That makes me feel so much better as a globe-believing normie who happens to have stumbled on this subject and looked to you for affirmation to affirm my bias.
Ideas have a much bigger problem. It's that you can't do anything with them. You can't use them to do as much as predict sunset and sunrise.
More projection.
Right, there you go, John.
So sunrise and sunset is something that you utilise with a geometric physical sphere edge horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, debunked in 2020 by the Black Swan, which has no practical application. You use it to claim there's a sphere edge getting in the way. We use the sun in a practical application for navigation. We being everybody, not flat earthers. You included. Those principles that use the sun and its GP are also translated into Polaris or a grid system. But we use the angles of the sun. So do you.
Yeah, but they're not a prediction.
Also,
Just a second. There's no sunrise and sunset prediction. That's not a prediction.
No, it's not cause and
I
effect.
mean,
It's
you
not
can
science.
calculate the angle. You can have a set of angles based off of a known cycle. Cycles aren't predictions. You don't predict based off a cycle. That's wrong. And a claim of a sunrise and sunset within her context is a begging the question fallacy.
Yep. Begging the question fallacy with a rotating sphere with an axis with respect to a flat plane and a physical geometric sphere edge obstruction at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet derived from a flat plane.
Now, how are you going to measure that angle to the sun, Sabine?
From a flat plane.
right, it's a rhetorical device used to describe elevation angle change of the sun as it approaches 0 degrees with respect to the flat plane. That's what sunrise and sunset is.
Yep. All
But,
roads lead to a flat earth. What was the something else?
But the mathematics of that you said sphere edge horizon, that's just a misinterpretation of that calculation. It is not. It doesn't have anything to do with level being curved.
It sounds like Sabine's just reifying the horizon. Should we show her a black swan?
Yeah. If the Earth was a sphere radius 3959 miles, then every distance to horizon measurement could be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, as per their maths. Distance to horizon in the black swan is beyond the geometric limitation inferred as a sphere edge, not possible, derived from flat Earth measurements, at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, off a flat plane. Therefore, the horizon is not an Earth curve and the Earth is not a sphere. We debunked it in 2020. Black Swan.
Let alone tides or solar eclipses or the paths of planets. You can't
Derived from flat Earth angle measurements to the stars. Your orbital motion is also with respect to a flat plane.
calculate airplane routes around
Calculate? Yeah, your measurements for those calculations are off a flat plane.
the sun's satellite navigation. Even if you
Navigation and the Mercator projection now on screen are using the grid system measured on a flat plane. The map itself's flat. The diagrams of the maps that you showed the car travelling along a moment ago were all flat. This is flat. You just need to use the flat Earth, do you? This Mercator projection, the grid system's measurements. based, flat Earth measurement based, Polaris based, and flat. I don't know why you're showing this. Why do they keep appealing to flat maps? I get people in my comments all the time going, still no flat Earth map. And you're like, all of them are flat. They have to be to work with angles. Yeah, people on the globe side keep throwing at flat maps like, why are you using this? Oh, well, it's come from a globe projection. What, of the circles of equal elevation measured off a flat plane we call latitude? That projection that was measured flat in the first instance. So they throw this up like they've somehow got a justification for using a Mercator projection. A flat map. Because that's how they all work, with angles.
Just throw some kudos at Brian there. Because Brian's work on Polaris is the one that destroys that argument. Because obviously the Mercator is a ball projection. It's all come from a ball. But what Brian highlighted is just to get those lines of latitude, you've still got to have a flat Earth to describe it first, everything. And the latitude lines are the ones that, to me, are the ball destroyer. Because it's the underpinning of all the grid systems. Well, where you move from there doesn't matter. You can build a ball, you can do whatever you want. But fundamentally, to build that initial grid system, to then shape it into a ball, you have to have statute miles.
Yep. It's the best claim ever.
Yeah,
It's the very reason moving into 2024, I said we should be on the front foot telling people Earth is measured flat in the first instance, because the globe comes from those measurements. That is the reason. I totally agree, Adam. It's the best proofsy there is.
But what just on their Mercator, transverse Mercator map, what that does is it allows them to use a flat plane via a grid map, but then always be able to convert the longitude positions back to a globe. It allows them to bring the longitude straight back to a globe because the longitude lines are based on that, are based off of a globe projection via the hijacking of the original latitude and longitude grid, which doesn't have the longitude positions fitting a globe. They fit UTC time, also known as Greenwich Mean Time.
And it shows distorted journeys. So if you draw out a straight travel path on that map, it will actually curve. Therefore, you've then got the justification to apologise for that distortion because it's come from a globe projection. So that's why they so frequently use the transverse Mercator, a flat map, because they say, oh, well, this distortion is merely because so we can use the map more conveniently. From a convenience perspective, we project out the ball onto this flat map. We project it onto a tube and then roll it out flat. But the distortions obviously are going to be there because of that process for convenience sake of having a flat map. But in reality, it's a globe projection. That's how they apologise for the distortion that globe projection onto the tube, then onto the flat map creates. In reality, the ball projection that it's taken from is areas of equal elevation angles to Polaris. Kudos to Brian for pointing out that connection with the lines of latitude, cementing it as the all-time best globe destroyer and flat Earth proof there is.
Well,
I have a question about.
Sorry, just 1 second, John. When they speak about distances on the universal transverse Mercator, that's when they must start bringing in the Haversine formula, because they start using rhumb line distances. But they give the impression that when they're dealing with big distances, they're using great circle route distances. Great circle route distances only work on the short scale, and the reason is only on the short scale will there be a small deviation between great circle route distances and rhumb line distances. When they're dealing with any great distance, they have to use rhumb lines, which are straight lines, straight horizontals, all meeting together. That's what they actually are.
Right.
So when they have to use any great distance at all, they can't refer to great circle routes.
Exactly. As soon as you refer to any distance, full stop, it's flat.
Yes, but when they say the globe part in that, I think what's actually happening is they're confusing the celestial sphere with the globe, just flat out misinterpreting it, and then they're doing all this stuff. I don't think at any point in time is it ever a globe that they can show, even by calculation.
No, I was told by a teacher that I do not understand heliocentrism at its core, that I'm just ignorant to it. That's why I'm a flat earther.
What we were just talking about there, Neil, is heliocentrism at its core.
which is the hijacking of flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. Bring that up with him.
Okay.
That's how I started it, but that's how she ended it. Just thought I'd throw it in there.
Okay. Well, a baseless personal attack after offering us some evidence doesn't sound justified in the slightest. With that, I'm going to say if you're watching on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So, another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, joined as a member, went and let Sabine know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Hopefully, before the round, we have a full round out. Someone from the chat will. Oh, hey, Divergent Droid, thank you very much. He's just stuck a link to Sabine's video, so if you can see that going by just before the live stream ends, literally as the case may be, a lot of you may not have actually gone while the live stream was going to go and let her know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me, but this is the perfect opportunity because we're saying goodbye to you live stream viewers. So click on that link to her video, let her know I sent you, and hopefully she'll make a little response. We'll see. Chances are a fine thing. But yeah, once again, another massive thank you to my Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. Again, thank you to all of you for doing all the YouTube stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.